I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act of conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording process is posted in the meeting room. A participant's sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Beck.
Here.
Coulterman.
Here.
Streisand. Here. Campereth.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Wilkin.
Present.
Alright, first item are the draft minutes of September 7th, 2021 budget hearing and September 7th, 2021 meeting. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please spread the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Campereth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 8-0.
Alright, the next 5 items make up this evening's consent agenda. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting yes are Wilkin, Beck, Campereth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. Passes 8-0.
Next item is the appointment of Wanda Lewis to replace Georgia Hackworth and Katie Stoles to replace Patricia Lindner into the Seward Housing Authority for 5-year terms.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Campereth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 8-0.
The next item under administrative items is the updated job description for custodian. Derek?
So this updates the custodian position at the city. The old position was last updated in 2002, and there's a lot of changes that have happened since 2002. For example, in the daily duties of the custodian back then, you were supposed to empty the ashtrays, so I think we're past that era. Daily, yes, daily. So there were some smokers at City Hall and the library and the like, so. I had Bob Core look at it because technically this person is under the direction of Bob Core. And I also had Becky Baker look at it because they have a custodian at the library. They've looked at it, made any changes, and then I've updated it. So we'll be hiring for 1 custodian shortly here.
Thanks, Derek. Any questions or comments from the council?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Campereth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. Passes 8-0.
The next item is consideration of a membership agreement with the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership. We have Jonathan Jank with us this evening. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Jonathan Shank with the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership. Appreciate the opportunity to present tonight and discuss the membership and funding agreements. I also have with me here Dave Cum, who represents Concordia University on our board of directors and serves as our board treasurer, and so you'll hear from him here in just a little bit. I want to start off by saying thank you for the City of Seward's investments in our organization, and specifically, not only financial, but the time on the board. Ellen Beck serves as your representative and does a wonderful job and has previously served as board chair, and so we're really grateful for her investment of time and efforts and being a very active member on our board and representing all of you very well, and so thanks Ellen. I would like to review our public sector funding agreement with the Seward City Council, and so we'll go over that document now. walk through that, the funding agreement was signed from October 1st through the end of your fiscal year, the end of this month, September 30th. The city's annual investment was $69,525 in the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership for this current fiscal year. And it was spent towards the operations of our organization and according to Nebraska state statute. You can see the Nebraska state statute language on page 2. The public funds were and are segregated in a separate bank account. The funds have only been used for the purposes of economic development. And there was an annual audit conducted within 60 days of June 30th, 2021 to ensure compliance with this agreement, and proof of the audit was emailed to you. We'd like the Seward City Council to consider renewing your support of economic development efforts in Seward County through entering into a new funding agreement and public membership agreement with our organization for your upcoming fiscal year. I'd like to briefly highlight some of the economic development projects we've been working on in 2020 and 2021. That is the third document that you have in your packet there. That's the with kind of blue highlights. And these developments have taken place all across the county and are highlighting just a few of our recent projects. Of course, we've had to continue adjusting our work due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've really used this challenging time as an opportunity to help our businesses keep their doors open and their lights on. Despite all this, Seward County continues to grow, and I think we could clearly see that through the recent census numbers that came out. I'd like to point your attention to one quote in particular from Ryan Berger. He's an accountant and partner at GBE CPA, which is located across the street from the Seward County Courthouse. If you haven't noticed, they purchased and renovated the former Seward Physical Therapy building in downtown Seward. They more than doubled their office square footage to grow their company locally. Ryan's quote says, "Being a member of the SCCDP has been valuable to our firm. During the pandemic, they provided accurate and timely information regarding grants, loans, and other COVID-19 resources. We partnered with them during our own TIF application process, which was extremely beneficial. And they take the lead on community integration with our local university students by creating awareness, networking events, and presentation opportunities. I don't believe people realize what they're missing until they join the SCCDP." I wanted to share this because I think the quote does a nice job of articulating the various ways that our organization can and does help existing businesses as well as new businesses in our community and county, and for them to continue to grow in Seward County. And especially this is true during unprecedented times like we've had this past year extended with the pandemic. I want to highlight and acknowledge my other hardworking SCCDP staff members and teammates. We have Leanne Miller, Zane Franciscato, who's with us tonight, Harrison Helmer, and 3 Concordia University students, Haley Steinbauer, Aaron Meyer, and Gage Smith. And they're focused on supporting many other important community and economic development projects. And you get to see their work each quarter through our quarterly reports that are emailed out. And I'll just personally say we're fortunate to work in our jobs. We're really grateful for all the support that we receive from the community, and especially the many volunteers that help us. And we continue to look forward to developing the future together with all of you in Seward County. I'd like to have Dave come up now and share about his role with our board, as well as the progress he's seen in our organization and why Concordia continues to invest in our work.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm Dave Cumm. I'm the Executive Vice President, Chief Financial, and Chief Operating Officer at Concordia. I've been here almost 19 years now, and I'm also very pleased to be able to say that I was in the beginning group when we started Seward County Economic Development, which eventually rolled into the County Chamber and Development Partnership. And so in those years, I have seen a lot of growth in this organization. I've seen a staffing group that has matured tremendously, and that has been under Jonathan's leadership because he came in really right at that time. And it's been really neat for us to be able to see our Concordia students go from being a student to being a professional within the County Chamber organization. And the chamber is not only made professional progress, but has really added to our community. And when we see that addition to our community, it makes Concordia want to invest in our community. And we need to have city leaders that also are showing that same embrace and interest in making our community strong. I had a conversation with one of the CFOs at one of the other institutions in another community, and she had once told me that her and her president had come over to Seward, and they drove around and said, this is the kind of community we wish that we were in. And so I think that goes to say a lot about the progress that has been made. As I said, Concordia has invested, as you know, in the Dunklow Centers. We've put a $27 million project in place. We're in the process of putting another $17 million project in place. We appreciate being able to work with the Chamber on various items to help promote new programs that we might be starting and how they can impact our community. And again, that ties in with the City Council here in Seward and the partnerships that we have, and we just really embrace the relationships that we've been able to build over the years, and would like to see that going forward. And so I just really want to emphasize, as Jonathan already has, great appreciation for the commitment that you have made to the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership, and would just ask that you continue that process so we can continue to grow together as a strong community moving forward with all the pieces that need to come together.
Thanks, Dave. So again, I want to say thank you for the Seward City Council's investment in our work. And last year we asked our public sector members to make an investment increase from the year before. We're not asking for an increase for this next fiscal year, but the same level of investment. And we're asking this because our scope of services and ability to impact economic development in Seward County is growing. We did add a new staff member, Harrison Helmer, who's focused on workforce development projects. This aligns with our strategic plan, which was created based on direct feedback from our public and private sector partners. To continue to expand Seward County, we need the same level of investment, and the public sector annual investments account for approximately 29% of our overall budget. Therefore, we'd like the Seward City Council to consider supporting the Seward County Chamber of Development Partnership during your upcoming fiscal year with a $69,525 investment. Again, thanks for the past support, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. So we have items 2, which is the consideration of the membership agreement, and then item 3 would be consideration of the funding agreement. Any questions or comments from the council at this time? Yes, Ellen.
Just wanted to thank Jonathan and thank Dave for coming tonight. I've been really impressed this year with SECDP. It's becoming a whole county organization more than it's ever been before, and that's something I was looking forward to do. It's always been fully integrated within Seward and growing as a part of the community. But this year I've also thought that we really got into bringing Utica and Milford and all the other communities, really embracing them and becoming a whole county organization. And you know, that's kind of what we need to be. So I think we've made some great progress. Budget-wise, it's very sound. We've got a 3-year plan for the budget. There's no doubt in where we're going. So I'm very pleased to support this agreement, and I would ask that you give it consideration for support as well.
Thank you, Ellen. Anyone else like to any other questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, going to entertain a motion regarding item number 2, which would be the membership agreement.
I'll make a motion to accept the membership agreement.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Hendricks. 8-0.
And again, item 3 is the consideration of the funding agreement. I entertain a motion as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Hendricks. 8-0.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jonathan. Item number 4, an ordinance amending the comprehensive pay plan, providing for a 4% cost of living adjustment for all pay lines, and incorporation of comparability pay adjustment for various employees. Greg?
Yeah, tonight you have with you an ordinance to adjust, the minimum and maximum is what we list within the ordinance. And then we generate from that the individual pay steps. These min and max pay line rates were developed pursuant to our initial budget meeting that we had in August. And the two motions that took place at that meeting, one was to approve, there was the initial offered 3.5% COLA. That was amended by the body to adjust to 4%. And then we presented all of the comparability adjustments and comparability, looking at communities twice our size or half our size, concentric circles, and looking at the offering of wages, retirement, and employer contribution to healthcare. And so we presented all that data to you and made recommendations. Those were adopted as a recommendation into the budget in August as well. And then we had our budget hearing last meeting officially. Those were included within that budget. No further amendments were made. And so pursuant to that, we've offered those changes. Myself, Derek, and Nick Wolf, treasurer, all re-verified these and made sure the math worked out so that we did it. So the comparabilities go first, and then you add the 4%. So that's how we completed that process and created the numbers that you have in front of you here.
Any questions or comments from the council? It is an ordinance, so when you're ready, I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
An ordinance to provide for annual classification of officers and employees of the city of Seward, Nebraska, to provide for a 4% cost of living adjustment for all employees and comparability pay adjustment for various employees, to provide for longevity pay and payment of part-time employees, to provide for a date such classification and pay ranges of compensation shall become effective, to provide for publication in pamphlet form, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2021-20, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Hendricks. 8-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2021-20. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
I so move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, again, the question is, shall ordinance number 2021-20 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your vote. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Hendricks. 8-0.
Next, item number 5 is ordinance amending the municipal code, initiating an electric rate adjustment, increasing total system revenues by 3%, effective with the October 2021 billing. Okay.
As we standardly do, we work and utilize NMPP, which is Nebraska Municipal Power Pool, as our rate adjuster. They do a survey of all of our rates, compare those to other communities, and then they provide us guidance and assistance in developing our cash reserve policies, and also then generating this document each year if there is any adjustment. And so that's predominantly who we've used, I think, for well over a decade, so I know preceding my time. And so what they've done is they put together here, pursuant to the budget that was passed at the budget meeting, and then ultimately at the budget hearing at our last meeting, a 3% revenue increase for the electric department. It goes throughout all of the rates. You'll see slight increases to the customer charge, so that's usually the meter charge, and then also an adjustment to some kilowatt hour rates as well, usually, and I can give you the adjustments if you want them, but rates are usually about $1 on the customer side, and then you'll see
anywhere from a penny on to less than even a penny on the kilowatt hour usage. So, but again, generating and working through this to try and generate approximately 3% of revenue increase to come across. So that's how they formulate that. I can answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the council or comments?
Since we renewed our contract with NPPD, how many times have we raised the rates since we had the renewal of the contract?
I believe 3 times, but 3 times since I've been here, and I believe before that they were all zeros for quite a while. Someone with more historical knowledge.
At the time when.
Senior council members.
Well, no, at the time when NPPD came to us to renew the contract, there was a surplus of energy on the market, and so they had said, because we were looking at perhaps not going with NPPD and going on the market ourselves, which some communities did. But at the time, NPPD was saying that they anticipated that at least in the next few years not to see any rate increases. Part of the issue that we ran into in the past, which is one reason why we looked at using renewables, was there were times when NPPD would pass down a substantial increase, whether it be even double digits, and that puts pressure then on the city as a wholesale provider to either pass that increase down or to absorb some, if not all, of that increase. So that's where we left it initially, but we have quite a few years left on that contract.
And then with the new substations and that we're implementing, is there any offsets as far as for usage? Will there be any
Offsets for usage.
as far as supplemental income from our adding these substations? Are we benefiting?
We are, because you brought on, for instance, PetSource has been brought online, but as you see at the end of our meeting tonight, we'll approve the EDR rate, which was a requirement of our MOU we entered into them. If they made it up and got to the power rate that qualified for them for the EDR, and we'll get into that later, we'll get a percentage adder on PetSource. And so that's the big one. It really will depend with that substation, what we bring online on an industrial level. The more industrial users we can bring online to utilize the rest of the excess energy, which there probably soon won't be much once PetSource gets going, and if they should ever have any expansion, they probably can eat most of that themselves. And then you would look to expand again because you've just ran out of power. Essentially, the substation was the last, if you look back at our 10-year plan that we established well over 10 years ago, the last item in the 10-year plan was to build a new substation. And that new substation was built because the city was just growing enough that we were running out of energy capacity. And we always need to have a certain level of capacity as dictated by NPPD. That's why we built it. Ultimately, having PetSource there, paying off the cost of that is going a lot quicker, which is good for us. And that's relayed within the NMPP study. So they're making these adjustments based on, they have a specific quantification in there for PetSource.
How many years are left of our contract?
With NPD?
I think it goes till, did you do that in 15?
It's like a 30-year
I thought it was
contract.
25.
25-year contract.
Okay. It's
It's a long time.
long
It's a long
time.
time.
And
We're maybe 5 years into it, John?
probably.
I feel like you did it in 15.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, what we've seen, you know, one of the reasons why we brought that to the council at that time as an option was that because energy levels were relatively cheap on the market, because there was so much energy available, you know, some communities did opt out of that agreement, and they've seen substantial savings in their utilities because they can purchase directly from the market. But then again, there are other benefits of having a VPD as a partner that they provide us. So it's sort of, you have to weigh those options, whether it's purely financial, it would have probably made sense to go directly to the market, but if you value that relationship, then it might make sense, you know, we're in a good place if that's what you value.
It was
It's
a
just how you
guarantee.
weigh.
It was a guarantee
Yeah.
versus taking a gamble.
The other one, big one that the mayor's talking about, a great example of that is, yes, there were other communities that were finding cheaper power using private, but one of the big ones they got hit on was this past February. Because those private entities and the way that their contracts were subjugated and put together, they got slammed on their power purchase during that February, where ours was kept completely level by NPPD. Now again, they did a few rolling blackouts and some other things, but that wasn't required by MPPD, that was required by the higher regulatory element, the Southwest Power Pool. And so MPPD really, really protected us from what could have been a catastrophic bill that I think some of those other communities had.
For renewable energy, are we at our max with the wind ag?
We probably have a small amount, but I don't think we have enough that we could even bring on another turbine at this point. They want to build those turbines at approximately 1.75 to 2 megawatts, and we're just not at the point where we can add.
I think we're around, what, 0.3 maybe left?
We're probably, with bringing on the new substation, we're probably a 30 megawatt town, so we'd have 3 megawatts. We're sitting at like 1.8, 1.85 with that turbine now. So we need to just bump up a little bit more, but the efficiency is building them in mass, so.
Having the relationship with MPPD, I think, is valuable for the reason we've discussed. The only aspect of the contract that's a little disappointing is the cap on the renewables. I understand why they do it from their standpoint, because they want to be able to guarantee so much wholesale purchasers, but it would be nice to have other options, whether it would be, you know, solar or wind or something else. Not that we'd have to do it, but we simply don't have that option right now, at least on a large scale.
Just curious, is there any out of that contract?
I haven't reviewed it recently, and I haven't reviewed yours. I just remember the one which was, I think, substantially similar in Beatrice when I was city attorney there. I think they have to basically like dip below a certain threshold, which they're not.
It's not like in other contracts where you can give them so much notice.
30 days and we're
No.
gonna
Yeah.
Buy them out.
No, you can give them like 20 years notice and then you can get out where we're at.
That's what I kind of thought, but I just curious.
It has a lot of measurements, and they did really good right out of the gate, and have continued to do well. And so, I think they're actually to the point where they're getting credit. If you remember the discussions that happened, if they did really well, they could start building up credits, and then if they came back over the curve and started performing, I won't say worse, but worse than the majority maybe, then they could use those credits to cut off that too, and they're gonna be able to, without something substantial taking place, they'll be able to toe that line pretty even down the middle. That's how it was designed.
Any other questions or comments from the council? It is an ordinance, so again, like the previous item, when you're ready, I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright. An ordinance to amend sections 237-3.1 through 237-3.13 of the municipal code to initiate an electric rate adjustment that will increase total system revenues generated by rates charged to customers for services from the electric distribution system of the city by 3% effective with the October 2021 billing, to provide for billing thereof, to repeal the original sections 237-3.1 through 237-3.13, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2021-21, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilken, Beck, Camprith, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand. Voting against is Hendricks.
Again, this is ordinance number 2021-21. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2021-21 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilken and Beck, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand. Voting against are Camprith and Hendricks, 6-2.
Alright. Item number 6, ordinance amending the municipal code, initiating a sewer rate adjustment, increasing total system revenues by 3%, effective with the October 2021 billing. Greg.
Kind of second verse, same as the first. Again, approved within the budget, heard at the budget meeting, approved in the budget hearing. And so when we bring this forth, working again with NMPP, predominantly the one that is precipitating this one is in preparation of the long-term capital outlook with the wastewater treatment plant project coming up. We'll discuss a little bit of that more tonight too as well with that design proposal. But that's a substantial capital cost that needs to be prepared for. And in NMP's projections and looking at that, they're saying you need to continue to build up your cash reserves because that is within your 5-year plan. So this is a 3% revenue increase designed the same way by NMPP.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Does any of that, and is it MARPA money the county got?
ARPA?
ARPA, does any of that go towards that?
It could, yes.
It could?
Yep.
That's up to the county.
Or the city. I mean, our money, the same thing. We just assume we have a finite amount of money and it can either go there or the water. That's the reason the water recommendation was also, I believe, 1.5% or 2% in the recommendation when we first gave them the budget. And then when we said in the budget, they've signaled that they were gonna put ARPA and that they said then zero out water. No increase in water at all. So
then is there a way to like reapply with the county to have, cause I think they still have more funds in there, don't they?
We didn't really
We didn't
apply
have-
for that.
we can continue to have discussions with them. I think they'll continue to receive tranches. Is that what it's called, Commissioner? They call us tranches.
Not heard that term.
I believe that's what they called them.
Tranches of money.
You like to come up with really names.
Me and
Yeah,
Nick
you
were
do.
baffled by the name of it that they gave us. They did not distribute the money in one fell swoop that each municipality and local government entity was getting. So we got half of our contribution this summer, and we'll have to wait a whole nother year tranche.
Not the tranche.
But if I understand it correctly, the county had some of their funding, and as a generous partner in the city gave us money for the water there. We didn't apply for it.
Yep.
That was just something that they did, not just for us, but for other municipalities, they gave them funding.
They gave a substantial amount of funds to Milford because one of the predominant items that they want to address is lead-lined water service lines. And I think I've talked about this with the council before, but that's like a huge issue in Milford to the point where their water treatment has to be done to take care of it. And the treatment is what my understanding is causing the water to be a different color. And so they really need to address that. And so the county gave substantial amount of funds to Milford to address that issue.
Commissioner, did you wanna say something? You would go to the podium, please, if you don't mind, thank you. And welcome.
Just let me clarify, you brought the question up, and I'll speak to it again. You've gotten your ARPA funds, I think some of them, we've gotten $1.6 million of ours at the county level, and we're expecting the other $1.6 million and some change, either late this year or sometime in January. I believe the funds come to the municipalities at a little slower rate, but I can't speak to that with certainty. We looked at ours and said we wanted to assist the communities in the county as best we could, based on the guidelines that the feds put out for the usage. And water projects were a very large part of our ability to spend that money. So we funded fully the first phase of Milford's water project. I believe it's it's a $4.5 million project. We gave them $845,000. I know that you have a $2.5 million project with your water tower. We obligated to the city $300,000. And as the liaison to the city, I'm going to ask the board for another couple $100,000 at least going into our second phase. So I would like to see the city get about $500,000, but again, that will be a board decision. We are also looking at projects for B, Garland, Utica, I believe, has something, and Pleasantdale, I'm not real sure, they're making some noises like they may have a need, but none of these other communities as of yet have put forth a viable plan. At least Milford and the city of Seward have a plan that they were able to come to the board and present. So based on those presentations, we allocated funds. We haven't written any checks yet, but those funds are allocated at this point. And we're also examining some other things. One of the issues we discussed today was premium pay for some of our employees, not some, all of our employees at the county level, around the COVID response and within the parameters of the act. So that's a synopsis of where we're at with our ARPA funds, what we've allocated, and some ideas of where we might push some of the other monies as they come to us. Questions from any of y'all?
No, we really do appreciate, you know, your willingness to work with the cities, not just Seward, but the other communities, because those projects, you know, get pretty expensive, and this, you know, your generosity as the county commissioners is allowing us to not increase our rate for the water, which would have likely been a recommendation had we not had that assistance, so.
And it's a nice way to give back in a sense, because obviously at the county level, we don't have a water system in the county. We don't have any rural water towers or anything. And it just makes sense to give back to the communities. I live here in Steward. I would just as soon see my water tower downtown pumping good water to my house here in the south end of the city. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? With that, this is, again, an ordinance. I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance if you are ready to do so.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
All right, an ordinance to amend sections 325-8.1 through 325-8.3 of the municipal code to initiate a sewer rate adjustment that will increase total assessment revenues generated by rates charged to customers for service from the sewer system of the city by 3%, effective with the October 2021 billing, to provide for billing thereof, to repeal the original sections 325-8.1 through 325-8.3, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2021-22. And the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved. Second.
The motion and a second, is any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Oh, hang on a second. Yes, register your votes. Display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand. Voting against is Hendricks. 7-1.
Again, this is ordinance number 2021-22. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, again, the question is, shall ordinance number 2021-22 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor are Wilkin, Beck, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand. Voting against are Camperth and Hendricks. 6-2.
Alright, next, item number 7 is also an ordinance amending the Seward Municipal Code, Chapter 248, Firearms and Explosives, Article 2, Fireworks, Item 2.4, Dates and hours of sale, and Item 2.5, Discharge restrictions. Correct.
Alright, this was a kind of an odd one that came to me, and Kurt's here, so we can kind of talk about this. I got a call about potentially doing a licensed display of fireworks within the city of Seward, and they said, how do I go about doing that? We want to have a little fireworks display, and I said, I don't know off the top of my head. The only one I remember not being the 4th of July was Ignite the Flight, and Ignite the Flight is not in the city. So I was like, that doesn't work. And so we racked our brain, and then we talked about some prior people that might have been shooting off fireworks displays, and we won't go into that detail, but we looked through the ordinance, the city code, and there was no way of reading it that allowed for a licensed, permitted, through the state, fireworks display at any other point in time other than the 4th of July. And we thought, well, that seems kind of odd. If people are okay with it and we want to celebrate the county fair or big baseball tournaments going on, any other celebration, because we like to celebrate things in Seward, we wouldn't be able to do it. There's no mechanism for us to approve it locally to allow for it. And so we kind of banged our head and went, well, we'll see if we can get something put together. I drafted the ordinance and brought up the idea and the topic to the mayor, and the mayor noted at the time that there was also a statutory change at the state level that allowed for fireworks sale and basically shooting them off around New Year's. And he said, I don't think since they changed that, had we ever considered it. And so if you're drafting this and it's in the same area, please put that one in there as well, if you can track that down. And so what you have before you here is an ordinance that allows for the display of licensed fireworks display, and there's a whole litany of stuff they have to do, including getting a state fire marshal's license. We would just have a permitting process. You'd go through the city, and you would get approval from the fire marshal, the police department, and the mayor, show your license and have insurance.
It'd be similar to like a street closure now, which is, except for the fire marshal, we have department heads sign off on the street closure. We wanna make sure the fire department's aware, in case they're in a hurry to go somewhere, they know which street's closed. This would be a similar process. We're trying not to reinvent the wheel, just fit that into this context.
And then it also includes basically a mirror of the state statutory dates for sale, approximately around the end of December. I believe it's December 28th through December 31st, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
That's
So-
correct.
And so that would allow not only the shooting off of fireworks for New Year's, but the sale, so you could potentially have stands. The other permitting process doesn't involve the sale. Those are people who have licenses who are going through the distributor. Those aren't gonna be off, you're not buying those off the corner. So, no. So that's the difference. So I just wanna clarify that so these two don't get confused. One's a permitting process at any time, so like, let's say Concordia has homecoming and they wanna shoot off fireworks after football game, or similar to like Lincoln does for Nebraska, or, for other assault dogs, those types of events. That's one aspect of this, and the other is the New Year's Eve aspect. So, did you have a question?
I guess I just was a little confused. There's nothing in state law that precludes us from doing fireworks at any other time of the year. You mentioned New
You
Year's,
can-
but that's just for sale of.
You can only do sale and then general firing off, say.
Anyone can shoot it off on New Year's Eve or New Year's.
New Year's and 4th of July in the state, that's
So,
it.
all the folks on Star Street who love to do it on the 4th of July can't just do it on November 3rd.
No, absolutely not,
Okay.
by state law.
And this would be licensing special permits for a specific event.
More than likely, yeah, so.
Is that written in
Um,
or?
It just denotes it's a display, and a display basically it follows the state statutory, because all of our descriptions mirror the state statutory requirement. And so they have to turn it in, and they have to have the plan with the distance away, and they have to be able to mark that off and cordon it off. I mean, it's a pretty big undertaking, so the likelihood
We're
of
not
it.
talking about a person who shoots off a firework in their front yard when Huskers score.
Nope.
Does that happen?
If they're shooting one of these off, you're gonna be knocking everything
Is that gonna
on
happen?
people's walls for the whole
It does
block off.
happen
But
occasionally.
it's not the Huskers score, though.
Occasionally.
No, so you don't, so it's, and the reality is that the one that requires the permit, I mean, you're talking about relatively expensive fireworks. This isn't just something someone's just gonna do because it's a Thursday. It's gonna, it doesn't specifically say special event, but it's implied. But yeah, I mean, in theory, if you're having an anniversary or a wedding and you have somebody who is licensed to do it, potentially you could try to get a permit for that. But it's not something that I could just go and do.
Thanks.
And no one would want me to just do that either. Terrible idea. So, any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just because of this is how I read it and this is how I'm interpreting it. So section 1 on here basically says the new dates and hours that you're able to buy stuff at sale, correct?
Yes.
And then in section 2, it's saying when you can shoot them off. What if I have extra ones left over from the 4th of July that I'm like, hey, I'm gonna shoot them off? Is there like an area that says that they have to be professional? Do you get what I'm asking?
No, like if you have fireworks left over from the 4th of July and you want to shoot them off on New Year's Eve, as I understand it, under the state law, you can't.
If this is adopted, you could.
But you can't shoot them off on Labor Day weekend.
No.
They can be leftovers.
Yeah, it doesn't say you have to buy new ones.
Are you,
Right, but I guess I'm not.
You just take a gamble.
Okay.
Like speeding.
Okay. Okay.
And the one weird date is January 1st, because we stopped
I know,
selling them at
I'm like,
11.
what?
But to make it New Year's, you have to take it into the next year for an hour. So, and we did ask the PD on this one, and they said we're already getting those calls, so it'd be nice not to like have to go chase all of them down, because they're already doing it. But it may be, this may be something that you, if you do decide to approve it, you'll want to like kind of do a census of how it went in January and go, yeah, that was maybe too much. I don't know.
So then in section 2, item A, where it says free to discharge, fire, launch, on number 2, it says onto any street, highway, or sidewalk. So like, if I buy them from the stand and I'm able to shoot them off, like, I can't go put it out in the street or the sidewalk?
Technically, no, and that's always been the rule, and that's the rule as it was, but we don't enforce it because
It's not
everybody
realistic.
does it.
If you did it on the highway,
Just so that there's
If you
someone-
did it on the highway, you'd be in a lot of
Like,
trouble.
if this
Yeah.
gets adopted,
It's already the law.
It's
The
already-
sidewalks, highway,
that's our
and
current
street,
one.
that's already the current
That's
law
the current
right
law.
now.
It's just a matter of discretion.
but like in Seward, you won't get a ticket because that's just what we
Well,
do here.
It would be at the discretion of law enforcement. So
Okay.
typically what we do, I mean, the 4th of July is like, drinking White Claws. I mean,
I
the
just like
laws.
to follow the rules, so if it has to be in my
There are
garage,
laws, I just wanna have that on record, there are laws.
I'm gonna be like, it doesn't say that I can't shoot it off in my grass.
Right. No, but typically, like on something like that, there's been so much going on, they're not gonna be enforcing necessarily shooting off in the street in front of your house, because a lot of people do that. It's just if they have to go back to the same place because it's causing traffic issues or there's problems, this would be on the books that they could actually cite someone for.
We're citing you for this.
Yeah, but otherwise, they wouldn't have any, there wouldn't be anything that you do.
And then if they did that, they'd make it letters to editors by Wednesday.
Right.
And Josh wouldn't get invited to any more kid things.
No,
No bouncy
no more
houses.
stuffed animals, no more Build-A-Bear.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, because it was, I was like, what is going on here?
I know this is kind of out of left field, it's just one of those things that came up and we thought, well, if we're gonna address that issue, we might as well look at all the related issues, and if you wanna, parse this out and pass part of it, but not part of it, or none of it, and that's completely up to the council, but we at least wanna give you the option, so you had everything in front of you.
Can we ask for like a review after New Year's just to see how things went?
Yeah, we'll give you an update.
We
'Cause
could-
you guys just like us will hear it,
Yeah,
literally and figuratively.
yeah.
Kurt, was there something that prompted this coming forward, or like was there an event that people are interested in doing?
Yeah, come on up.
Go ahead. There is. Spoiler. There is. Welcome.
I mean, he's here, I just thought,
Yeah.
Kurt
Well-
Coddington, 1018 North First Street in Seward. Thank you for allowing me to come. And before I get to that, I just want to say thank you to the city for the cooperation we've had as the 4th of July fireworks team. We've had such stellar cooperation from law enforcement, from fire, from the city parks, from the city streets. Everybody has been so helpful to us, and we just thank you for the cooperation that we get. I, in my 14 years of doing this, have seen a great increase in the level of cooperation that we've had, to the point where it's like, wow, I'm just really, really thankful for the city of Seward and all the departments for what we're able to do. So this came up because we had a special occasion in our church, and that was we paid off our mortgage and our building, and I wanted to set it up on a firework. That's what I do.
Yes!
So I wanted to shoot one off, and since
And you're licensed.
and I'm licensed, and I can get it and everything, so I asked, would it be okay if I shot off that one shell, or maybe two of them, one with it, to make it look pretty or something, on the property just to the north of us, because we can't take 500 people out into the country to shoot off one shell. It just doesn't make any sense. So I asked, and that's how this all came about, was for a special occasion. But as you said, in the past, there have been people who have, shall we say, not abided by the things, and they actually have had ATF show up at their door for shooting things off, having a permit. But the permitting process is, as you say, in order to get a permit for this, you have to be licensed. It's a 3-year permit, or 3-year license that you have, and then you have to tell the exact spot. You have to show all the setbacks that you have, including for prisons and nursing homes, in order to shoot that off. And then you have to have who the sponsoring agency is. You have to tell them where you got the fireworks and what the official rain date is. So it's all pretty specified. This would be for commercial grade. The smallest one we use is 3 inch, about the size of your fist. That's not the stuff you get at the local stands. That's a totally different classification. These are 1.3, and it has to go through licensed people every time. So I'll answer any questions you might have.
So you ruined the surprise, Jessica.
Sorry.
You ruined the surprise.
So you haven't done it yet?
No, you don't have a permit to do it.
I'd like to do it.
I am committed to, well, we actually burned it, but we have another celebration coming up in November that I said, if you guys get this passed by November, I would shoot it, and then make sure that all the police and firemen do.
So no, don't put this in the paper yet.
Yeah, no.
It's a surprise.
But yeah, we would love to do that if we could, but we can't do it without the permit.
And that's part of the reason why we kind of expedited this process, because obviously they have a schedule of events they're trying to stay on, so.
Oh, that's cool. We're excited for you.
The other one was the element of, just as Kurt talked about, they technically also need what, a city property right now, north of the church, and I'm like, I can't even like let you do it and let you ask for forgiveness. I mean, there's just no way. We had to have a formal process to like work all this out, and we both were like, yeah, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So.
And there, like, when you talked about some of the different things, the possibilities of homecoming, it's still the setback rule, so it would not qualify to do one on the track. That's illegal. Even though I've watched this, somebody stood next to me and did it, it's illegal to do. And so it would still have to abide by all of those rules. But they do have, when you talked about the university, they do have close proximity shells, which you can do within close proximity to people. And so there are some possibilities to do such things with close proximity shells. We just don't use it for 4th of July.
And just so you know, and I'm sure you've heard, I've gotten a lot of compliments for the 4th of July fireworks celebration, especially in the last few years. People have seemed very impressed. People have walked away very impressed by the show. So
ask who we paid to do it. They always ask that.
Yeah, I know. And then Clark sends them my way, and I tell them, well, if you're going to bid on it, you have to bid less than 0. Nobody gets paid a dime. So we enjoy our work. This was my last year of being in charge. And I've got the next person trained in